Yeah, good afternoon, and it's now my job to close up our meeting here. My name is Jörg Dräger. I'm in the board of the Kühne Foundation, and it's been great listening to you here today. And you know, in finishing up, clearly, I want to say thank you, but I also want to give you two outlooks. I start by saying it's been inspiring to get an academic and an industry crowd in a way into a room and be addressed with relevant topics, some of them out of the box thinking, and I'll come to this out of the box perspective in a minute. As for saying thank you, I want to thank you for being here. Because especially for people coming from industry, I mean, we're fully aware that you are just addressed with an enormous amount of challenges. You know, there is the usual business challenge, but there's a geopolitical shift, you know, again today affecting also the worldwide supply chains, their environmental urgencies, their breakthrough technologies, and all of that is keeping you amazingly busy, and nevertheless you found time to come here, take a day off, take a step back, and, you know, integrate yourself into a discussion which is in this room, in the other rooms, with people from academia and with your colleagues. But I clearly also would like to thank you for the people making this possible this day, you know, especially people from KLU hosting us, and the keynote speakers and all the people discussing. We're grateful for your time, again, your input and your competency in bringing the field forward. What do I take away? I don't want to give you a summary in the normal sense, but just want to leave you with one thought of what at least I took away. And it's that logistics and supply chain is so much more than just efficiency. And when you talk to people who are not in the field and you say, you know, I'm working now in logistics field, their first impression, it's about cost, time, digitization, process optimization, and maybe AI. And that clearly is part of your and our business. But what the different discussions showed today, that there are many different perspectives to it, and I just want to name three. The first, resilience and also adaptation to climate change. You know, when ships get stuck in the Suez Canal, or a drought in Middle America is reducing the capacity of the Panama Canal to be shipped, you know, suddenly resilience, or in a pandemic or in a war, becomes a major issue. Second, sustainability. I mean, that was one of the core topics of the day today. And thirdly, also what I would call global fairness and the responsibility of the supply chains to be globally fair. We had talks about humanitarian aspects of the supply chain, but also the question of moving production and value creations into countries of smaller and middle income to enable development and growth. And I'm glad that, you know, an academic institution like KLU, or the people and speakers here, gave us the different perspectives beyond efficiency, talking about adaptation, talking about resilience, talking about sustainability, or talking about aspects of fairness. And this brings me to my first outlook of two, and it will be quick. The first outlook is an additional perspective of internationalization and from parts of the world that are not in the global north. And I'm saying that because our host, KLU, will become more international soon. We decided to open up campuses in other parts of the world, and the first one will be in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And President Kaplan and I were just there talking to potential partners, you know, trying to understand what does a country like Vietnam needs when it comes to an academic institution around logistics. And the first message was, yes, we have a desperate need in capacity building in logistics. And the second message was circular economy is a super hot topic. And can we merge the aspects of functioning supply chains with the need of becoming more sustainable and working in a circular economy? And I found, that was in a way inspiring and reconfirming about the course that we are planning as a foundation, where we say we want to build capacity and knowledge for responsible globalization, and institutions like KLU are an important part of that. And the second outlook I'd like to give is that we want to go further. And climate and sustainability becomes an even more important point in our work. And I would call it almost like the logistics of climate action. At the corner where logistics, climate action, and development meet is where we would like to place our climate center, which we just decided last week to found and significantly fund. And it will, to a large degree, take place here in Hamburg. And some of the colleagues of the Climate Center have been here with us today already. Our goal is to decouple growth from emissions, with a focus on the Global South and the development needed there. And clearly, what I would call almost the traditional way is decarbonizing logistics will be part of what we do in our Climate Center. But it definitely won't be all, and maybe even the smaller bit. We want to look at those fields where logistics can become part of the solution of a green transformation. And we'll keep asking the question, where can logistics help to scale and accelerate the green transformation? And one field is obvious. The logistics of renewable energies is becoming a relevant field. How to put up and service windmills and how to service solar power and to ship it and so on. That's almost, I wouldn't say boring, it's important. And to scale it up, it's a huge challenge. But we want to go further and, for example, look into the future of logistics of carbon dioxide removal. And when you think that we want to reduce between 100 and 1,000 gigatons of CO2 from the atmosphere, it's an enormous logistical task. And some of those tasks seem almost trivial. But it seems to me that many people don't think it to a proper end. 99% of CO2 removal is done by afforestation in the moment. Traditional forests removing CO2. What happens if a tree falls down and rots? After 20 years, almost all the CO2 stored is up in the atmosphere again. So afforestation obviously is not the solution in itself. What you need to do is harvest and store the wood for a long time, either in buildings or in things like biochar. But how do you transport tens of billions of tons of wood? Take it out of forests, bring it into buildings, convert it into biochar. Or take the biochar. How do you transport billions of tons of biochar and get it as fertilizer into the ground? Or people talk about ocean CDR methods, carbon dioxide removals in ocean. What you need to do is just to, distribute maybe 100 billion tons of limestone across the oceans. Surprisingly, nobody has thought about the logistics and supply chain to do that job in a sustainable way. It's those questions we like to address and hopefully answer in our Climate Center. And given that you see it is at a very close link with logistics, it will be in very close partnership with KLU. So over the next 6 months or so, with now a significant amount of budget behind us, it will be our job here together, and I'm addressing the colleagues from KLU, to come up with something good for the future of what I would call the logistics of climate action. And given that, and hoping to create real impact from that, I'm pretty optimistic that at this cornerstone of AI, our climate center will have a strong computational modeling focus. Logistics and sustainability, today's topic of our conference, we will have more to contribute on the 20th and 21st and 22nd Logistics Day of the Kühne Foundation and Kühne Logistics University. And with that, I'm happily sending you off in the afternoon, but especially saying I'd hope to see you here back at KLU, at our Climate Center, and definitely at the next Logistics Day. Thank you very much.